अस्सलाम वालेकुम, नमस्ते, सत श्री अकाल। कैसे हैं आप लोग? उम्मीद करती हूँ ठीक होंगे, खुश होंगे। मैं हूँ हज़ीका अली और मेरे साथ हैं
तारिक नियाजी। अस्सलाम वालेकुम, नमस्ते, सत श्री अकाल। उम्मीद करता हूँ ठीक होंगे, खुश होंगे। दोस्तों जहाँ रहें खुश रहें, माँ बाप का ख्याल करें क्योंकि माँ बाप हैं तो सब कुछ है। चैनल को सब्सक्राइब, वीडियो को लाइक, दूसरों के साथ शेयर और बेल आइकन को तो
जरूर प्रेस करें ताकि आने वाली हर वीडियो का नोटिफिकेशन आपको टाइम टू टाइम मिलता रहे। आज मेरी वॉच मिसिंग है। सो आज की हमारी वीडियो है बहुत ही रिक्वेस्टेड, बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग, बहुत ही इन्फॉर्मेटिव। सो स्टार्ट करते हैं अपनी वीडियो को। लेट्स स्टार्ट। इस वीडियो का टाइटल है 2022 महिंद्रा स्कॉर्पियो एन रिव्यू। टफ एज एवर बट मोर sophisticated.
Me in danger, I'm not a stranger. I was the kid who would never back down. Y'all get the anger, I get the paper. I gotta win, so I'm never last out. Butterfly stomach, cause I really want it. I come from the dark, so cut the lights out. Heart of a lion, the steps of a giant. Don't step in the ring, cause I'll never tap out.
7-seat SUVs are popular these days, but almost 20 years ago, one of the first few to set the trend was the homegrown Mahindra Scorpio. Now that car's had a few updates and changes and engine changes, but it's remained the rugged, upright SUV that had a very bouncy ride. Now 20 years later, Mahindra are giving us an all-new Scorpio and nothing remains the same with the old Scorpio except for the name, and even that has an N tacked on to the end. So this is all new. How much has it evolved? Has the ride changed? How's the engine? How's the performance? I'm going to tell you all of that and more in this video. But first, the price. Now, Mahindra have priced this very competitively. They priced it from 12 lakh to 19.5 lakh for the manual variants. The automatic prices are going to be announced later. They're very big on this and they're calling it the big daddy of SUVs. Can it go big? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So do watch this video right to the end and remember to hit the subscribe and the like button.
और अगर आप ये वीडियो हिंदी में देखना पसंद करेंगे, प्लीज चेक कीजिए व्हाट कार इंडिया चैनल, लिंक इन डिस्क्रिप्शन।
The Scorpio is still a body-on-frame construction, but this time it's a new platform, the same one as on the new Thar. It's lighter and stiffer to ensure better dynamics, and there's a lot of high-strength steel used to ensure Mahindra maintain their track record of a good NCAP rating. It's also the reason this new Scorpio has only forward-facing third row and no side-facing ones. Dimension-wise, it has grown in length, width and wheelbase, but it's lower in height than before. Ground clearance is 170 mm laden, which means when it's fully loaded. But honestly, we had no trouble going over a lot of the rough road sections. Now what's changed is the very flat square lines that the Scorpio had before. The front and rear screens are more raked, the window line kinks up to the rear, and the creases on the side are softer too. It sits on a smart set of 18-inch alloys and there is black cladding around the wheels and at the bottom of the doors, but it's not as prominent as before. There's a footboard on the side to help you step up into the cabin. The windows are also underlined in chrome that kinks up at the D-pillar and over the rear glass to imitate the lifted tail of a scorpion. The front carries the Mahindra trademark grille with chrome look slats and it's flanked by the double barrel headlamps and LED brows. Lower down, the fogs also have a LED surround that imitates the scorpion sting again. A beefy chin, skid plates and a long bonnet give it the butch SUV look. The Scorpio N does have attitude, but the rear is probably the most unflattering part of the car, and the vertical stack lamps that imitate a Volvo actually make it feel a bit disproportionate. Now this tailgate is very large and it opens outwards, not upwards. So if you park your car in a garage, you're going to need a load of space behind it to open out this very, very large tailgate. It is scooped to accommodate luggage once all three rows are up, but the space there is very tight. The floor kind of curves in, so the largest open space is actually in the middle where you can get a haversack or a strolley in. But apart from that, I doubt you'll get very much into the back of this car. On the sides, as I'm showing you, it's narrower, so you really can't fit a strolley or anything large size in even vertically over there. So just about one bag will come into the back of this. Let's flip the seats down and see if we can open up more room. Yep, once you flip the seats down, there is more space here, but again it's narrow, so fitting a large suitcase you'd probably have to line them up standing over here. and get your 2 suitcases in, and I think that's about as much as you would pile in. You could possibly also flip the front seats and add more luggage, but then that would need no passenger room. Now the spare tire, and as I can see it, there is no release for the spare tire over here. It's from underneath, so on a rainy day like this, to get under your car and open that out would be a bit of a bother. In a large size SUV, one expects a lot of room for luggage, and though the Scorpio is big enough, the way the seats fold and flip creates pockets of space instead of a flat storage area. Now, if someone had just sat you inside this car and told you this was the all-new Scorpio, you would not believe it, because that's how much this interior has evolved, and it is completely modern, new and very fresh looking. You get a dual-tone dash, you get a nice leatherette finish that runs right across the dashboard. This dual tone coloring is on the seats as well, which has a nice stitching around the edges, and it's got a perforated finish. So yeah, quality looks very good. The plastics are a little hard, but it's textured very well, so it really doesn't look like hard plastics around the cabin as well. So overall quality looks very good. You get a nice satin chrome finish which surrounds the central console. In the middle of it, of course, is the 8-inch touchscreen. Now this has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but you cannot connect Apple CarPlay wirelessly. Though the feature list states it, Apple CarPlay was not available on our test cars. There's a host of features here, and you have the Sony 12-speaker system with 3D surround sound. And if you want to know more about the connected features, the infotainment system, what it has, and how the sound system is, well, click on the link on the video right now, because the editor of our sister magazine Stuff will explain all the tech details to you. But moving on, there's a nice steering wheel with all the steering controls. You also get analog dials and an MID, which have a host of functions similar to the XUV 700, but the usability of it has improved. In the center, you have the aircon controls, the rotary knobs. Those of you who watch me regularly will know that I prefer rotary knobs. They're just so much more intuitive to use. There are toggle style switches below this for shortcuts, just like you've seen in the XUV 700, and below that you have the wireless charger over here for your phone. You have 2 USB-A ports. You have cup holders, you have a shallow bin here for storage. You also have a glove box, which is fairly large and nice. You have door pockets as well, and it can hold a 1-liter bottle, but accessing the door pockets is a little hard. It's very close to the seat, the edge of this door, so there's very little space to get things in and out of, and if you wear a bracelet like me, it tends to graze and scrape the side of the car. Seat has power adjust for the driver's side. The passenger side is manual. There's a nice big grab handle over here, big and chunky to give you that full-on SUV feel. You get the satin finish along these chunky door handles as well, and the door opening handles too here, piano black touches that you see around the cabin. So overall, it does look very rich, and it does come with quite a few features. Let's take a look at those. On the feature front, you get the sunroof, a 12-speaker Sony music system, wireless charging, dual-zone ACs, but there are no ventilated seats or paddles and no telescopic adjust for the steering. There's no auto-dimming mirror and no blower for the third row. And while the infotainment system had a lot of features, the camera was a little laggy, and like I said, Apple CarPlay was not available. To get into the second row, it is a bit of a climb in, but you do have the footboard and a handle to grip. Now, we did get 3 people into the bench seat version and found it to be good enough. Shoulder room is ample and the bench feels wide enough. So 3 of us in the back seat now of the bench version, which is in the Petrol Automatic, and I have to say it's not bad. Floorboard is flat. Nishant, are you okay?
Yeah, pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and I think there's enough leg room for him as well, and we've got a decent amount of shoulder room for the 3 of us. I can actually make more space on the side as well, so yeah, I think enough space for 3 in the back on the bench version. Now later in the story, I will tell you all about the captain seat variant as well, about its space, convenience features and ride comfort, but for now, let's check out the third row. Well, we're going to talk about accessing the third row now. From this side of the car, this seat is just a flip down, so I'm going to come that side and show you the one-touch tumble. and as you heard from that side, the doors close. Actually, let me show you with a nice thunk. And this is it. It's a single flip, very easy, and lots of space to access the third row. Now, once you're in the third row, what you have to know is that the middle row does not have rails, so you can't adjust space between the middle and the third row. There is a fixed amount of space over here. It is quite low to the ground. I am quite knees up, and there is a little bit of space. I can stretch my feet out under the seat in front of me. So yeah, for someone my size, you could possibly sit here on a long journey because the window area is also quite big and nice. So it doesn't feel too hemmed in, but honestly, it's not the best amount of room in a third row, and there's no recline for the seat back either. Yes, when Nikhil got in to do his piece to camera for the Hindi channel, yes, you can watch his video on What Car India because he's doing the Hindi story this time around. The third row was a tight squeeze for him. So it is a no-no for taller people. It's just kids and people like me that would be okay. Now while getting in is one touch. Once you get out, I want to put the seat back, it's heavy. Well, with all rows checked out, it's time to get the show on the road. The Scorpio will come with two engine options, a 2-litre turbo petrol with 203 HP which has 370 Nm of torque for the manual and 380 Nm for the automatic. And then there is the 2.2-litre turbo diesel that will be available in two power ratings, the 132 HP version and the 175 HP version, which is the one I was driving first. Get behind the wheel and you sit in a nice high commanding position. Visibility is great with lots of glass area, and the car actually feels very light on its feet. So you'll find it easy to maneuver in city traffic. I'm driving the 2.2-litre turbo diesel which has 175 HP and 400 Nm of torque. That's because I'm in the automatic variant. The manual has a little less torque, that's at 380 Nm. Now it doesn't have the mid-range punch that the earlier engine had. The power delivery is more linear, so it masks speed, but you build up speed pretty quickly. It is quick, and you do get a good slug of power every time you put your foot down. While the mid-range surge is missing, performance of this diesel overall is impressive. Overtakes come effortlessly, and in our initial test, the diesel did 0 to 100 in about 11.25 seconds. But I must mention that this test was not in the ideal Autocar conditions. There are no paddles, but the 6-speed automatic works quite well. Shifts are smooth and they come easily enough. Yeah, if you do stomp your foot down, it does have that typical slight hesitation before it shifts down. Gentler acceleration brings up the shifts much better. So when you are at lower speeds and in city driving conditions, the Autobox works well to make driving a breeze. And in traffic conditions like this, the creep mode works pretty well. Lift off your foot and the car gets rolling on quite easily. It actually crawls at a pretty decent speed. So there is no jerkiness or sudden surges. The progress from standstill is easy, and it also means you can edge along in slow moving traffic with ease. Now you do have the drive modes, zip, zap and zoom, like you had them in the XUV 700 as well. This is for the diesel variant. And zip basically is the mode that you would use for fuel economy, zap of course for city driving, and zoom when you're out on the highway. But honestly, there isn't much of a step up between the different modes. There is a marginal change in the response of the gear shifts and the throttle. So city or highway, the Scorpio N is comfortable in its stride. There is an area that it could do with a little improvement though. The brakes are a bit grabby. There's a lot of travel in the pedal and then they suddenly catch. So it's something you really have to get used to. Another area where the diesel engine could have been better, especially considering M&M's own track record, is refinement. The engine is quite refined, but push it hard and you will hear it. It is a bit noisy and boomy. You do hear the clatter of the diesel engine. But apart from that, cabin refinement overall is very good. So you don't really hear much else from the outside. You don't hear the suspension or road noise filter through. A lot of work has been done by the engineering team at Mahindra & Mahindra to ensure dynamics that can keep up with the kind of performance that the new Scorpio N delivers. And it definitely shows. The steering is quite light at low speeds, so you'll find it very easy to twirl this car around in the city and nip in and out of traffic gaps. But as you pick up the pace, it weighs up quite well too. It's got a good on-center feel, so you get a lot of confidence at higher speeds out on a highway. And even during cornering, it puts the car where you want it to go. And the way that the new Scorpio N goes around corners comes as a pleasant surprise. Though there is body roll, it is well contained and there is an agility that you don't quite expect. The good dynamics also mean that backseat passengers will now be far more comfortable, which is what I found when I hopped back there. The middle row of the Scorpio N has a good amount of leg room. The back of the front seat is scooped out to make more space for knee room, and I think there's enough even for taller people. You can stretch your feet out under the seat as well. The seats themselves are extremely comfortable. You have an armrest, but the issue really here is that this seat doesn't have a slider, so you can't open up more room for yourself and get more comfortable or make more leg room for yourself or adjust space between the third row and the middle seat, because this is a fixed seat and that's a big miss, I think. However, you can recline this. So once you recline and stretch your legs out, you can get pretty comfortable for a long journey. On the practicality front, you do have the air vents, you have blower control over here, you have a USB-C port, you have pockets in the door, but the space here again between the seat and the door is very marginal, so getting your hand in and pulling something out is a bit of a tight squeeze. Headroom, I think, is okay because the roof is scooped out here, but taller people might find that this portion right here in front sort of takes away a little bit from the feeling of space. Otherwise than that, you sit up in a nice high position, so visibility to the front is good. It's a nice big window area, so it does feel nice and open and airy, and it is pretty comfortable back here. The puffins at M&M have not only worked on dynamics, but they've also worked long and hard to ensure that the sore point of the earlier Scorpio, its bouncy ride, was a thing of the past. The roll center of the car was worked on to ensure stability, and a long travel suspension with frequency-dependent damping was used to smoothen out the ride. Now, where you'll find the biggest change in this new Scorpio N is in ride quality. Gone is that bouncy feeling of the backseat where you were tossed up like a salad. This one is much flatter. It is more composed. There's less body roll. So overall, the ride quality is much better. And there is a pliancy to this ride as well, which doesn't let much of the road filter through. As you pick up the pace, it stays flat and comfortable as well. So yeah, ride quality on the whole is a massive improvement. But one has to remember this is a body-on-frame, and though it's really well engineered to keep passengers comfortable, there is a certain amount of stiffness over rumblers and broken roads that will filter in. Now, this back seat is spacious and it is comfortable enough, but honestly, if you're looking at the top-end variant of this car, at this price, you could get even better, and you could get even better from within the Mahindra family. The XUV 700, for instance, would offer you more space and more comfort. Well, after spending a considerable amount of time in the diesel and bringing you all the details, it's now time to shift over to the next car. So it's time for the Petrol Automatic now, and this engine feels very, very refined, and the engine and gearbox work well in tandem to ensure you've always got power. So it feels nice and strong. Dump your foot down and you get a good slug of power for an overtake. The petrol engine feels lively, and in our initial test figures, it threw up a 0 to 100 in 10.2 seconds. Once again, I mentioned this was not in ideal autocar conditions and it may be quicker in the actual road test. This engine and gearbox combination, however, is the better one and responses definitely come quicker. There are no drive modes in the petrol, but there are none needed either. And while power is not punchy, you still get a strong linear pull of power right up to the red line. The turbo petrol is delightful, serving up a healthy dose of power whenever you want it. And that's just not it. It's also in the way that it tackles the road that makes it even better. Overall, the handling on this petrol variant feels a lot better. The steering feels more connected. It gives you more feedback. The nose darts into corners with more agility. And it just feels more stable, planted and sure-footed. You can actually have fun around the corners with this one, and that is something I never thought I'd say of a Scorpio. Before I wrap it up and sum it up, I'm now in the four-wheel drive variant of the Scorpio N, and we're on an off-road track to thoroughly put it through its paces. The four-wheel drive system is quite advanced, and apart from electronically activating four-wheel low and four-wheel high, you can also dial through various modes like sand, snow, mud and rut and normal. These have been carefully calibrated and use the ESC and four-wheel drive to modulate power to the wheels where it's needed. It also has brake lock differential for front and rear and mechanical lock differential at the rear. Now for my trip, I had selected four-wheel low and mud and rut. And honestly, the Scorpio did much more than I expected it to. Slushy slopes, steep, slippery inclines, rocks, smooth rocky surfaces. I think we've thrown pretty much everything at the Scorpio, and for those who are worried about ground clearance, I say don't worry because this pretty much goes through everything. Haven't had an issue at all. There are lots of rocks and little boulders in our path and it hasn't bottomed out anywhere. It's sailing through. The Scorpio N also has 500 millimeters of water wading depth, so the small puddles we went through were really no trouble at all. The Scorpio N will come in a multitude of variants and we counted 25 of them. The prices for the automatic will be announced in July, with deliveries expecting to start in the festive season. Also, a key point to note is that these prices stand true only for the first 25,000 bookings. As you can see, this is a very capable car. I mean, I was doing that a little earlier, and when I saw it from inside the car, I thought impossible, this is not going to go through. But it does, and it does so easily and smoothly, you just can't believe it. And it's not only capable in these off-roading conditions, even out on the road, it's got two really nice engines with great performance. Ride and handling is very good. In fact, the handling is something that you don't expect from a Scorpio. So this Scorpio N has evolved on many levels. It may not be the best in areas like third row, the feature list or luggage space, but it does still have enough of all. And yes, it does have sting, it does have bite. With the kind of prices that Mahindra have offered, it makes for a very compelling package. One of the first few to set the trend was, what am I saying after that? Updates. I keep forgetting that. Okay, chalo. This is much easier. Kya hua isko yaar? The manual variant has 380 Nm of torque, and I can't do my PTCs here. Slap the person who made these speed breakers.
जी जनाब, क्या कहेंगे आप? ओवरऑल आप इसके हवाले से क्या रिव्यू को समझती हैं? ओवरऑल
मतलब मैं ये कहूँगी, अच्छा ये जो टोटली रिव्यू था, ये था महिंद्रा स्कॉर्पियो एन। उसके हमने बहुत सारे, आपको याद होगा, हमने बहुत सारे वर्जन देखे थे। Z2 था, Z4 था, Z6, फिर 8 है, तो ये था Z8L, ठीक है। तो मैं ये कहूँगी ओवरऑल सारी चीज़ें अपनी जगह कमाल की, सब कुछ मतलब वही जो मैं हमेशा कहती हूँ, हर यूनिक कार को देख करके एक कंप्लीट पैकेज है। लेकिन थोड़ा सा मुझे जो मसला लगा, क्योंकि हमारे सब्सक्राइबर्स और व्यूवर्स की डिमांड होती है कि आपको जो बुरा लगे वो बताया करेंगे, आपको जो समझते हैं, मुझे थोड़ा सा वो जो मेरा कहना ये है कि आप थोड़ा सा मतलब स्पेस ज़्यादा रखकर, मार्जिन ज़्यादा रखकर, और भले सीट्स कम होती है लेकिन मार्जिन ज़्यादा होता, तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि वो जो लास्ट रो थी उसके अंदर मार्जिन बहुत ही कम था स्पेस का, यानी कि आप मुश्किल से कुछ उठा पाओगे, मुश्किल से आप बैठ पाओगे। अच्छा, अगर आपको कोई तवील सफ़र करना है, लंबा सफ़र करना है, तो उसमें तो आपकी हालत ख़राब हो जाएगी। लेकिन फिर आपने ड्यूरिंग द वीडियो कहा भी था, अच्छा आप तो आवाज़ मतलब वो हमारी साउंड तो आती नहीं है, तो मैं बता दूँ तो आपने ये कहा कि बच्चों के लिए फिर भी बेटर है, लेकिन हम लोग जैसे हमारे जैसे लोग, यंग लोग नहीं बैठ पाएंगे, एडजस्ट नहीं होगा। अच्छा, सेंटर की जो सीट्स थी 3 थी, उसमें मुझे लगा कि काफ़ी स्पेस दिया गया है, काफ़ी मार्जिन रखा गया है। कोई चीज़ अगर आपको उठानी है तो आप झुक सकते हो, पॉकेट में हाथ डाल सकते हो, डालकर कोई चीज़ निकालनी है तो आप निकाल सकते हो, रिलैक्स होकर बैठ सकते हो, लेकिन स्लाइड नहीं था, यानी कि आप अगर थक गए हो। अच्छा, अक्सर ये होता है लंबा सफ़र हो तो मैंने जो ज़्यादा नोटिस किया है कि गर्दन वाला जो हिस्सा है ना आपका, वो दुखना शुरू कर देता है। बैठे तो आप थोड़ा सा चाहते हो कि थोड़ा सा मैं रिलैक्स हूँ, ऐसे हो जाए, इतना भी हो जाए ना तो आपको बड़ा अच्छा कंफर्ट फील होता है। लेकिन ये चीज़ थोड़ी सी मुझे नहीं अच्छी लगी, बाकी मुझे ओवरऑल बहुत 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 बढ़िया लगा।
अच्छा, अंदर का जो लुक है वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा स्मूथली, बहुत ही खूबसूरत, बहुत ही अच्छा लगा। जो लेदर का वर्क किया हुआ, मतलब सीट्स जो है वो दिखने में बहुत खूबसूरत लगी।
अच्छा, दिखने में उनका कलर, हाँ, उन्होंने कहा प्लास्टिक हुआ तो हार्डियों से काफ़ी, लेकिन कंफर्टेबल है। अच्छा, रियर लुक जो उसका था बैक साइड, वो भी मुझे अपने आप में बहुत, और फिर स्पेस
अच्छा खासा दिया इन्होंने। और दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि स्टीयरिंग के बारे में कहा कि बहुत ही ज़्यादा मतलब है कि कंफर्टेबल है,
ठीक है,
यूज़ करने में बहुत आसानी होगी। अच्छा, सबसे बेहतरीन चीज़, सबसे अच्छी चीज़, सबसे ख़ास चीज़ जो इसे कारों से मुख्तलिफ करती है वो है 4 व्हील। यानी कि आप पहाड़ी इलाकों में, रॉकी एरियाज़ में, कहीं पर भी आप फंसोगे नहीं। खास तौर पे जैसे पिकनिक के लिए इंसान कहीं जाता है तो एक हद तक तो कारें जा सकती हैं, उसके आगे कार से नहीं जाओ।
अच्छा, हमारे साथ इत्तेफाक हो, हम बलूचिस्तान गए थे, यूनी की तरफ से हम सारे ग्रुप बनाकर गए थे, तो हुआ ये कि वापसी में बारिश हो गई। अच्छा, अच्छी खासी हमारी बड़ी हाई रूफ टाइप की वो थी, गाड़ी थी, काफ़ी मतलब अपने आप में बड़ी, जिसको कहते हैं मजबूत तरीन लग रही थी देखकर, टच करने से, देखकर, बैठे सीट वगैरह भी बड़ी कंफर्टेबल, बड़ी अच्छी। लेकिन जब बारिश हुई तो वो गाड़ी बंद हो गई, और उसके जो व्हील्स थे वो इतने मतलब नाकिस थे या इतने चीप थे कि वो बारिश के पानी में चल नहीं पा रहे थे। अब मैंने यहाँ पे देखा, वो आपने आखिरी वाला सीन देखा कि नहीं देखा, कि वो बिल्कुल टेपर में करके गाड़ी चल रही है, ना वो वहाँ गिर रही है ना वो यहाँ गिर रही है, मडी एरियाज हैं, रॉकी एरियाज हैं, वो हर किसी में निकल जा रही है। यानी कि हमारे यहाँ तो ये वो हल्का से नोकीले पत्थर होते हैं, उसके ऊपर से गाड़ी का निकालना मुहाल है, मतलब उसी वक्त आपका टायर पंक्चर हो जाएगा, आपकी गाड़ी रुक जाती है, बंद हो जाती है। बारिशों में आपने देखा कितने सीन्स देखने को मिलते हैं कि गाड़ियाँ रुकी हैं, बंद हो गई हैं, क्योंकि ज़रा सा पानी चढ़ा गाड़ी बंद हो जाती है, क्योंकि उसके अंदर पानी चला जाता है, उसमें मसले मसाइल शुरू हो जाते हैं। तो लोग घंटों घंटों खड़े रहते हैं पानी की वजह से कि भाई बारिश का पानी थोड़ा सा कम हो, ख़त्म हो, तो फिर हम अपनी गाड़ी को लेकर जाएं या सही करवाएं या कुछ करें, तो बड़ी मुसीबत। इस चीज़ को लेकर तो मैं वाकई दाद दूंगी, तारीफ़ करूँगी कि इसको देखते हुए, इसको मद्देनजर रखते हुए बहुत ही अच्छी चीज़ है।
बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई भी शक नहीं है, और बनाई ही इस मकसद के लिए गई कि आप इन एरियाज़ में भी जा सकते हैं। और ख़ास तौर पे मैं कहता हूँ पिकनिक के हवाले से तो बहुत ही आला है, बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त है। और पीछे की सीट्स का जो थोड़ा सा इशू है वो मतलब है कि मतलब एक फैमिली होती है तो फैमिली में लाजमी 1-2 बच्चे भी होते हैं, तो इस तरह मतलब है कि सारी चीज़ों को कैलकुलेट करके चीज़ें बनाई गई।
लेकिन अगर ये है कि आप 8-9 बंदे जा रहे हैं आपके साथ बड़े, तो फिर उसमें थोड़ी सी दिक्कत आ जाएगी आपको, मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है।
अच्छा, प्राइस के हिसाब से अगर बात की जाए तो मैं कहता हूँ इस प्राइस में बस अब क्या बच्चे की जान लेंगे कि हाँ महिंद्रा की जान।
लेकिन ये उनके वर्जन्स में Z2 Z4 तो फिर भी कम प्राइस के थे, ये फिर भी अपने आप में कीमती थी।
तो मैं कहूँगा कि बहुत ही मुनासिब प्राइस है, बहुत ही जिस तरह से इन्होंने चीज़ दी। अच्छा, LCD मतलब टच स्क्रीन दी और स्टीयरिंग दिया। अच्छा, ये एक बार जिक्र हो रहा था कि जितनी भी विंडोज़ हैं वो काफ़ी स्पेस दे रही हैं, यानी कि आपको ऐसा नहीं है कि छोटी सी विंडो है तो आप उसमें से छोटा सा एरिया देख सकते हैं। छत भी आपको दिख रही है, जैसे रूफ है वो भी खुल सकती है और वैसे भी शीशे की है। तो आप वो भी देख सकते
मतलब
हैं।
एक
साइड ग्लास।
हाँ, अच्छा ये सब चीज़ें कम हो, जैसे विंडोज़ वगैरह छोटी हो तो आपको वैसे ही सफोकेशन शुरू हो जाती है, घुटन होती है आपकी, तो भाई जल्दी मेरा मतलब रास्ता कटे और मैं पहुंच जाऊँ अपनी मंजिल पर। लेकिन ये गाड़ी मुझे देखकर अच्छा वो भी बड़ी सेटिस्फाइड थी। एक दो जगह पे उन्होंने कहा ओवरऑल ज़्यादातर पॉइंट्स जो थे उनके तो वो बड़ी पॉजिटिव रही हैं इसको लेकर, और वो बड़ी सेटिस्फाइड रही और बार बार कही थी बड़ी ईजिली, बड़ी हैंडलिंग भी ईजी है और इसके अलावा हर तरीके से वो सेटिस्फाइड थी। तो मैं ये कहूँगी कि जब एक ऐसा इंसान जो इतना एक्सपीरियंसेबल है, जो गाड़ियों पे ही रिव्यू देता है, वो इंसान अगर आपको थोड़ा सा मुतमईन दिख रहा है तो इसका मतलब वो अपने आप में कमाल है।
अच्छा, जिस वक्त इन्होंने टेस्ट ड्राइव ली है, जो भी ड्राइव कर रही थी, बड़ा ख़तरनाक मौसम था ये। इस मौसम में सही मायनों में पता चलता है कि टायर की ग्रिप रोड पर कितनी ज़्यादा है,
बिल्कुल,
क्योंकि इसमें टायर अक्सर स्लिप हो रहा होता है। यानी कि अगर ब्रेक मार रहे हैं, आप रोक रहे हैं, फिर चला रहे हैं, फिर रोक रहे हैं, तो बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है जब रोड गीला हो तो। इसके बावजूद उन्होंने कहा कि ग्रिप मजबूत है, अच्छी ग्रिप है, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है। और इत्तेफाक था कि ऐसे मौसम में इन्होंने रिव्यू दिया जिस मौसम में पता चल जाए खुल के सामने।
क्या बताइए जानबूझ के भी किया उन्होंने,
देखिए
पता चले, समझ आया हमें।
जिस इलाके में उन्होंने ये रिव्यू देना है वहाँ पे अक्सर बारिशें होती रहती हैं, क्योंकि सारा ग्रीन एरिया था। अच्छा, एक एक्स्ट्रा टायर भी था, इमरजेंसी के तौर पे आपको यूज़ कर सकते हैं। और ऐसी जगह रखा हुआ है छुपा के कि आपकी गाड़ी का लुक ख़राब नहीं हो। अक्सर मैंने देखा है कि गाड़ियों के साथ ही कहीं टच हुआ होता है तो उससे गाड़ी का जो वो लुक है, जो खूबसूरती है, वो नहीं रहती। तो बिल्कुल नीचे की साइड पे छुपा के रखा हुआ है।
यानी टॉर्क भी अपने आप में कमाल था, और गिरफ्त जो होती है जिसको हम उर्दू में कहते हैं गिरफ्त, वो बड़ी अच्छी थी, बड़ी अच्छी देखने को मिली। हर चीज़ अपने आप ओवरऑल अगर हम ज़्यादातर पॉइंट्स पे बात करें तो मेरे हिसाब से बहुत अच्छी है, बहुत बढ़िया है। एक दो को तो फिर भी इंसान फिर
बहुत अच्छी
नेगलेक्ट कर भी देता है ना, जब आपको बहुत सारी चीज़ें अच्छे से मिले तो फिर आप एक दो को बोलते हो चलो डजंट मैटर।
बहुत अच्छी है।
हाँ,
कब लेने जा रहे हैं? कब लेने जा रहे हैं?
आप दिला नहीं ना मुझे,
कब चल रहे हैं लेने के लिए?
हमें इंडिया जाना पड़ेगा, यहाँ तो एक्सपोर्ट नहीं होती।
तो कभी ना कभी, आज नहीं तो कल हो ही जाएगी। टाटा की भी अपनी बात है, टाटा की गाड़ी है, कभी कमेंट्स आया
अच्छा, मैंने सुना
भी बड़ी मजबूत गाड़ी।
लेकिन महिंद्रा के हवाले से तो मैंने सुना भी, दावा कहा था कि हमारी साइड से डिमांड की गई थी कि गाड़ियाँ आनी चाहिए महिंद्रा की, टाटा की, दोनों की, लेकिन पता नहीं क्या मसले मसाइल मिलके नहीं आए।
वो ये कि ये मसले मसाइल ख़त्म हों और हालात बेहतर हों,
बिल्कुल,
तो आवाम को फ़ायदा हो।
फिर हम भी महिंद्रा स्कॉर्पियो एन ZL पूरा रट्टा मारा हुआ है मैंने, उसमें हम भी घूमेंगे फिर।
तो एक बहुत ही ज़बरदस्त रिव्यू था, बहुत डिटेल से था, अच्छे से समझाया इन्होंने। दोबारा किसी वीडियो से आपसे मुलाकात होगी, अब तक के लिए
अल्लाह हाफिज़।